Thanks very much for joining us for episode 48 of InTek Freight and Logistics, the podcast. I'm Kevin Baxter, joined by my co-host for this edition, InTek President Shelli Austin.
Hey, Kevin.
How you doing, Shelli?
Doing well, thank you.
So technology is a pretty big part of improving efficiency in the logistics space. And what we're talking about today is very exciting technology that is specifically focused on Dray on the intermodal space. It's called ModalView, and it's an app and collaboration between Norfolk Southern and DrayNow. So we have a few guests here today to talk to us about it, tell us about what it is, how it came about, and what it's doing. So we welcome Senior Director of Product for DrayNow, Meghan Nesta, President and GM of ModalView, Mike Albert, and a former President of Triple Crown Services, who's also consulting and spreading the word about ModalView. It's Sam and Niness. So thank you, all three of you, for joining us.
Thank you.
So as we get started, first, let's go around the circle and tell us a little bit more about yourselves and what you do. We'll start with Meghan.
Well, thanks again. It's really great to be here. I'm Meghan. My career has been in technology. I've been leading product development for the past 10 years, doing it before I knew that was a particular job function. So I lead product for both DrayNow and ModalView, and really excited to talk to you about what we're working on with ModalView.
Hi, my name is Mike Albert. Appreciate your time and for hosting us here. I've been around the logistics space for about 35 years now, but my first 18 years I was on the 3PL side. I worked for a major 3PL, worked for Penske Logistics for about 18 years. By experience, I'm an operator by experience, but I've always loved technology. Kind of cut my teeth when I was played a large role in the early days of General Electric with the Six Sigma. I'm a guy of the Six Sigma wave. So I love technology, I love data. And I came to the intermodal space in 2008 and been in this space since. And I really saw this as a frontier logistics space and needing technology solutions. And I'm to this day now about 14, 15 years later, I'm still trying to drive some of those initiatives around technology. So excited to talk to you and talk more about ModalView.
I'm Sam Niness. I've been in the intermodal industry for about 40 years, a little over 40 years. Just retired from Norfolk Southern, Triple Crown, Thoroughbred Direct in June. I was involved with DrayNow pretty close to when they started, and we were using them as a drayage company. And as we'll talk about, Norfolk Southern became very enamored with their technology, and I was instrumental in helping to onboard this JV. And so after my retirement, I thought I'd just see if I could help Mike and Meghan finish this rollout and get it out into the marketplace.
Nice.
Great. So you started to talk about it a little bit, but it's been about a year or so, a little over a year since this partnership actually sort of officially went into effect. So tell us how it came about and what it means.
Yeah. So for Norfolk Southern, as you know, they're the second largest intermodal carrier in North America, rail carrier, and their number one objective is growth. And in order to grow, you must grab market share from the motor carrier over the road industry. So looking at what are some of the barriers, or what are some of the obstacles and the opportunities, and one of the biggest areas for growth is having efficient and cost-effective drayage. For Norfolk Southern, in some of their shorter distances, Dray is, on a door-to-door move, is actually the largest cost component. And they don't pay for it. They don't control it. And the Dray is purchased by companies like InTek, and as they putting together a door-to-door move. So it's a large part of their costs and they need to figure out how can they help it. So they became aware of DrayNow through Triple Crown, who was using them, and as they saw from their technology, this looked like something that could be actually pretty beneficial for the entire industry, as we'll talk about. And so we started having meetings with Mike and figured out a way to create to spin off the technology into this JV, and to focus on bringing efficiencies and connectivity for the between the sales channels and the Drayage market. And this isn't, Niness's interest in Dray has gone back for years. They had rolled out about, I think almost 10 years ago, was Express NS, which was their gate technology designed for the Drayage community to speed them in and out of the gate faster and get them on and off property as quickly as possible. So this is just another part of their interest in Drayage and helping it to become a more efficient part of the sales process.
So, being in the IMC space as we are, I don't think everybody focuses as much on Dray as they should. As Sam mentioned, on the cost side of it, in some of those smaller miles, Dray, the cost side is even larger than what the rail portion is. But for us, where I think that the focus needs to be on is that the Dray is the point of contact for us to the shipper, our customer. I mean, it's the driver that's showing up that is really the point of contact. And also, as you think about it, that's kind of where in past intermodal experiences, kind of where the gap has been in the visibility, because you can get set up on EDI with the railroads and just like that, because you're just dealing with the railroad. But when you think about drayage, there's all these different dray carriers that you need to use to be efficient and cost effective. And how are you going to get them all set up on EDI? So this has been kind of the thing that we always talk about. And people talk about intermodal service and they always point to the railroads. But in my opinion there's a very limited amount of service that you can impact with the railroads. Yes, sometimes it can be a pain and they can get stuck on the railroad, but really service is all about that first leg and the last leg, that first final mile and the last final mile, and that's the drayage. So as I just blurted all of that out, help us, because you talk about how Norfolk Southern found the value in this in the technology. We talk about DrayNow, how they kind of instituted themselves into that space, that Dray space, to help with the service and the visibility. So tell me more about this ModalView. Like, how does it all come together? What really is it doing to kind of fill those gaps of those things that I mentioned, where Dray is really a touch point for service and how we interact with our customers today?
Yeah, sure. I'll help you with that. Sophie, you're exactly right. I'm really, when I first came to this industry, I was always amazed that the first and the last event, as you talked about, are where you touch the customers. And I come from a world, in the 3PL world, where most of the emphasis is where you touch the customer. In this space, it's really been absent. And the level of investment at that level of where you touch the customer just hasn't been there, right? And that's to your comment there. That's really been a gap in not only investment but technology, and that's where really we'll come to I'll come back to ModalView in a minute, but let's step backward to DrayNow. When DrayNow started back in 2017, 2018, that was the impetus. It was to, if you remember back in those days, a lot of IMCs were trying to drive their own technologies, their own apps. Well, those apps were very self-serving, whether it was an IMC. Those apps were very self-serving. They weren't thinking about what that Dray carrier needed at the first to last mile. We've always approached it different. We've always approached it in the DrayNow perspective. Hey, what does that carrier really need? And we're trying to keep the carriers in one app versus having to have 20 or 30 apps for various IMCs they do business with. So DrayNow's emphasis was always like one simple app from the driver's seat, from the driver's perspective. We started doing business with Triple Crown back in 2018, and they watched the evolution of DrayNow from being in one market, one market, our first being in Chicago, just from the infancy starting, like, could we actually take these carriers that we're using at DrayNow, which we don't use drayage carriers. In the DrayNow side, we bring in single mom and pop owner operators. Could we bring in those operators? Could we get them on a common template? Could we get them on a common app? Could we drive that app? Visibility, transparency, document capture, using algorithms to determine price, to help with pricing, all those things that this space has been absent of. And that's, when as we get deeper into a relationship with Triple Crown, their demands and needs around having to provide information for their customers upstream became more prevalent. And, we naturally stepped into some of that. We can do at the DrayNow, in DraynOw's business, having ETAs available anytime. It's, that's kind of bread and butter for us. Being able to predict, that's bread and butter for us. Having documents in real-time fashion before that truck ever leaves the dock, that's kind of bread and butter for what DrayNow is. And I know we'll talk more about ModalView in just a minute here, but that's the emphasis of where ModalView's origins came from, is what DrayNow had already built.
Yeah, Mike, you touch on something there, and a lot of people don't always focus on the invoicing and finance part of our business, but that's really key. And you mentioned the documents, and I don't think everybody understands. Money is king, right? And everybody wants to get their money, but in this business, you can't get your money until you have the appropriate documents. And so that has always been a long time challenge of collecting those required documents to get them to where you can invoice your customer. And you could it doesn't matter what terms you're on. If it takes you, a month, 10 days, 15 days, 30 days to get those appropriate documents, you're pushing yourself out that much further. So I think that is really key. And it's always been kind of an archaic process in the intermodal space.
Yeah, it has. And a lot of, when you talk to carriers and you say, do you have the ability to do scanning? Do you have the ability to track and trace? They all say yes. But the reality is, only a few really can do it, and if they do it, it's via using ELDs, separate apps. Drivers may have to carry 3 or 4 apps to do those multiple things. In DrayNow, it's all one app. It's all built, the scanning, the tracking, the documents, the ETAs, that's all in one spot. It's not different free apps that drivers have to download to get that information into some office.
So, so you talked about the origins of DrayNow, and I think you touched on some of the pain points already. But when you talk about the fact that a lot of these elements were things that have sort of been out there, how does this help to achieve that efficiency that's been lacking so far? To some degree in the intermodal dray space, particularly.
Yeah. Well, one big one is now we have all that information, and now that information is all at our fingertips, things like street turns, where containers are, equipment. Those, again, that's bread and butter for us. Our customers, being able to show our customers where empty containers will be and when and what date and what time they're available. Those are things that are bread and butter for us. It's really making those, if you think about the asset, big motor carriers in this industry, they can do things that the non-asset guys in the drayage space, they can do things because they have technology. It's their assets. They can see everything. They can do load situations. With DrayNow, we can do all that stuff that most people in this industry can't do very easily.
So tell us how ModalView has sort of evolved DrayNow even more, and what it does that's even more exciting as a continuation of DrayNow.
So I think it's probably good to also just start at the nuts and bolts of what the platform is. So we offer a mobile application, a web application, and an EDI API platform. So I'll break down each one of those just to make it a little bit more clear on what they do. So the mobile application is what the driver who is actually moving that piece of freight utilizes. It's a really simple workflow-based system. And it has a couple of key components that we've kind of touched on in the conversation already. So one is location. So we get real-time track and trace location. There's not a dispatcher calling the driver and then the driver telling them where they are and when they expect to arrive. That's happening all the time in the background. We get pings every 10 seconds. And then that's also connected into an EDI platform. So not only are we getting that real-time location, but we're also getting those status updates, those 214 status updates that are the industry standard that's plugging into the system. So this allows, for example, a carrier who may not have an EDI connection to be able to transmit that EDI information to their IMC because they're connected to ModalView. That location information is coming right through the system. The mobile application also captures those documents in real time. So as the driver scans the VOL, for example. It's uploaded to ModalView, and at that moment, both the carrier and the IMC have access to that document. It's associated with the load. And to your point, Shelli, that's immediately available. That cuts down that time of waiting to get the piece of paper to go to the office to get scanned to then, 2 weeks later. So that eliminates
It hasn't been uploaded yet. I don't know how many times we hear that.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, just to be really in the weeds, we require that document capture to go to the next step in the mobile app. So it's right away. We're forcing that in the flow in an easy to understand process flow. Now on the web side, so we have a view on the web application side for the carrier. So for the dispatcher, for that logistics coordinator, they can see all the orders that they have from their IMC available. They can accept a load, reject a load. They can do that high level management and also see where their driver is. And then on the IMC side, they have the same view. So they can see for their carriers, who has what load, what status is it in? Can I, getting that document right away if they need to. We really want to have a platform where you can get those updates, but also manage exceptions easily as needed. And then lastly, the API EDI platform. So our vision for this is to really create a one-to-many connection platform. So as a carrier, I can connect to ModalView, and then I have access to any IMC who's on the platform. So I don't have to have those really costly, complicated EDI connections, which particularly for a carrier is very cost prohibitive. I could do it once, and then I could have this sort of standard way to communicate with my IMC just right out of the box. And then the flip side for the IMC, they're able to connect to these carriers and not have to do one-off EDI connections because, as we know, they're complicated, but it's also the industry standard. It's what we have now. And related to the API front, we're looking forward to also being able to connect with TMS. So we are doing that today with Triple Crown. We look forward to expanding to other TMs in the space and get more granular information. How can we just fit into those processes that are already existing, not starting all over, building new things, all that change management? How can we bring that information in right away? So that's where we're excited to head. So back to the original question on, what does ModalView have today? How is it, making things better? Really the big thing, there's two big components right now today. We're providing a neutral standardized platform, which has benefits both for carriers and the IMC side of there is a simple way to execute the movement of this freight. It's not one-off for each individual person communication. It's all one way that we can expect. And it's neutral. So it's neutral and standardized. So there's just an easy way for both parties to be able to move this freight. And we're excited to continue to kind of expand our network of who we're working with to get more input on all those processes and how we can make that even more simple.
I love simplifying, it's connectivity, tracking, paperwork. And these are the touch points that are so manual today in when we do an intermodal move. And this is going to automate it. And you're going back to the paperwork, if you take a look at how, map out how paperwork comes in, driver collects probably half a dozen proof of deliveries throughout the week, or maybe he's got dozens that he's collecting, stops back in the office, drops them off. Somebody has to sort them, figure out which load they were on. Then they probably have to go to multiple different web services, that scan them into different customers' TMS systems. And it's incredibly manual. And then the IMC then gets this paperwork and they have to double check that did they put the right paperwork on the right load? And it's another double check process. There's so much touch on just the paperwork. What's really fantastic about this is that we're pushing the scanning and the indexing onto the phone. It's taking the work off the driver. It's taking the work off the dispatcher, and it's taking the work off the IMC logistics coordinator, because the loads get a snapshot of the picture of the picture of the document. It's automatically associated with that load, and it just appears into your TMS system already ready for billing in the same day that it delivers.
Yeah, I was just going to tell Meghan to holler at me after the podcast because we'll be your beta on that TM solution you want to try out.
I'm looking forward to it. Okay,
just give me a little call. You got my contact info. We'll just have a little chat. But no, it really is the next level. Sounds like so a question that I have for you is, you look at all these things in the truckload world. Let's just, say like macro point, right? And everybody's adopting something that is an additional way to have that I call Amazon effect visibility. And so I feel like this is kind of that next step to get close to that in intermodal. So my question is, you mentioned how good it is for the carrier and how the carrier can connect with the IMCs, but is it so easy to get set up that it's something that with the IMCs, when they're onboarding their carriers through their onboarding process, where there's all these different ways to onboard a new dray carrier, is it something that could be a requirement for an IMC that says, yes, I want to onboard you, but you have to have ModalView so I can have the visibility that I want? And if that's a requirement that the IMC does ask their dray carriers, how quick is it for a carrier to do that? Because it sounds all great and wonderful, but we don't want to slow down the this is transportation, folks. We wanted to move the load 3 days earlier than it even came to us. So, we want to make sure that we can keep fast on our onboarding process, but the benefit is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And the exciting part is we're at the very beginning of our journey and figuring out how to make that onboarding as smooth as possible. That's actually one of the focus projects for the first quarter of next year, is how can we streamline that onboarding process, work with our design partners to understand what's your current process today, and then make it as easy as possible to onboard. Because to your point, the vision of ModalView is just to make it as simple as possible. We want to have it remove as many barriers, be a part of existing processes, and to not make it really onerous, and to make it easy, a neutral platform. So we're really looking forward to a lot of feedback on that process and how we can make it better.
The connectivity is so fantastic. When I've talked to other IMCs, and speaking from Triple Crown's experience, we have 200 plus drayage companies, and we probably do EDI with half a dozen. And I've heard that from other IMCs are in a similar situation. I've talked to drayage carriers who say, yeah, I do EDI, and they're in the same boat, maybe six to 10 IMCs that they can connect to. And so it's just due to the expense and the time it takes to set up an EDI transaction. So what we see, this singular connection, make one connection and reach everybody on both sides of the equation, for both the drayman and for the IMCs. We just see that as a game-changing efficiency. And then you're talking about the rollout you were asking. I can speak from Triple Crown's experience. When we were rolling this out for the first time, we had to we did it with our own in-house trucking company down in Greer, South Carolina. One of the most fantastic things is how quickly the drivers just got it and picked it up with very little training. And that goes back to the origins at DrayNow, where they wrote this app. They wrote it for an independent operator. And these drayage companies that don't even do intermodal, and they go in and they hire an independent owner operator. One day they say, load up the app. Guy accepts the load. Here's your app. The app teaches them how to do an intermodal load, and it's just so simple as go to the terminal and here's some steps that you have to it helps them with. And it's a very intuitive app. It's been designed for people that don't know anything about intermodal. And we found that our drivers have actually expressed how much they were Triple Cross drivers, how much they like it, and are finding it to be really easy to use.
Yeah, I think that's exciting because I think it just people that aren't in that space, in the intermodal space, and understand drayage as well as we do, it's always the dray piece that falls off the map on the EDI setups. And it's because your dray carrier today for that lane may not be your dray carrier tomorrow for that lane, may not be your dray carrier next week for that lane. It's always great when you find somebody that's rock solid and awesome and you keep them on the move. But the amount of changing with the dray carriers on both the origin and the destination side in the intermodal move is a lot more than what people probably would think of. And it's daunting to think that you would try and set up EDI with every one of those. As you mentioned, Sam, it's costly, it's expensive. So that usually is why there's those gaps in the visibility for the pickup and the delivery, is because it's just really, really hard to make sure that you have those connections unless you're working with, a door provider or somebody that owns the assets on both sides. So this gets us to that next stage to where we can close those gaps where we've seen them traditionally on the visibility, where you're trying to act like you have that and you're on the phone saying, oh yes, we're just checking on that ETA, and the folks in the background, the Oz behind the curtain is like they're all on the phones trying to get a hold of somebody to find out where it's at. So it really is exciting to see that maybe we can get to that stage where we can eliminate those gaps.
I think it's an incredible marketing advantage today. As you know, Shelli, when you're working on a bid, there's a prerequisite almost every bid that says you must have in-cab GPS tracking and tracing. And you look at them, the shipper, and say, "Well, I'm an IMC," and they go, "All right, you get a pass." And they do that for the industry. They understand that that's not how it works. Well, that's a huge disadvantage. And what this app will do is it gives you the same capability as an over-the-road guy, as an asset-based guy. You have the ability to transmit information, not directly. It's going through still going through the dispatch company, but you're reaching it. You can see that the driver's received it. You can see that where that driver is on the way, bobtailing or taking an empty. You can watch every step. And you can communicate that back to your shipper. And suddenly you look like an asset-based carrier. You have total visibility in play.
Yeah, and just when you guys want to hire me to sell, let me know. But I mean, going back to some of the think about the small challenges that we all know, but nobody really focuses on. And I'm going back to the document thing. There's a ton of locations, and even more today, that are requiring the bill of lading to even get in the door for the delivery. And in traditional intermodal, it's a struggle, right? Because, the origin dray carrier didn't scan it in, and we don't really know that they didn't scan it in until it's almost time for the delivery. And then everybody's scurrying because they know the requirement is to have that piece of paper in hand to make that delivery. And then everybody's trying to call the origin carrier, and then it was a blurry scan, or it was, this, that, and the other. It's just so many pieces of what makes a successful move are hinged upon these documents being available and the visibility. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And just to get really into the weeds, you have that origin dray with the bill of lading. We have it instantly that can then be uploaded to the destination dray and ready to go, just like in that moment. So we're collapsing all of that you just outlined into just a moment. And I think it's also important to call out how much we really care about the driver and how much that really motivates a lot of what we do to make it a really good experience. A lot of these requests kind of fall down to that last person and making it a really easy, simple, clean experience for them, and, supporting their process is really important to us as well. Because we've gotten questions about, well, how do you guarantee adoption? How do you get compliance even for the driver? And so we're focused on that as well. And I think it's important to call out.
And Meghan, do you have, with the document capture, do you have sorry, Kevin, I do this all the time. I go way off script. Do you have the abilities for photos? Because, I'm starting to even take this another step further, which you guys have already done. I'm just getting excited over here. But, the big thing right now are fraud and claims. And as you think about it, a driver's there and they're wanting to refuse the load because there's missing product or there's a missing seal. And I'm just thinking to myself, then you can immediately have the pictures. Then you can start that process quicker. You can communicate to your customer quicker, those types of things.
I love how you've seen our future roadmap already and you're just bringing in the conversation. So I think that's a great point. So just kind of where we are today and then where we're headed. Where we are today is we have a really clean scanning app. As soon as you open up the camera, it looks for a piece of paper, it frames it in, it cleans it up, makes sure the contrast is really bright. So it's a really clear image. That's what we have today. Where we're headed, our vision is that a driver never has to type anything in. So what we'd love to have is continue to evolve our scanning technology to pull in container number, chassis number, seal number, be able to document exactly, this is what I found. Here are the pictures of the things that I found on site. So we're definitely headed in that direction. Not there yet, but that's where we want to be.
So one thing that kind of came up in this conversation was the advantage to maybe Dray or potential Dray carriers that hadn't done it before. And so it kind of goes both ways, right? Then you have access to more potential capacity. there, and then for those folks, it makes it easier, I would assume, to actually just book a load. And Sam, you talked about this a little bit, to the shipper experience. We're talking about the app, how it's affecting the folks kind of behind the curtain, but for the shipper, you mentioned already the GPS component of it. Are there any other things about this piece of it, of using the app, that will streamline things for the shipper, as at the very least as a sales point, but just in an experience point as well?
I think I would say, for the shipper, what we feel is that you one of the things that differentiates IMCs from each other is how you build your products for integrating uniquely with your clients, with your shippers. So what we can do is we can feed you the data and feed you the information for you to then tailor and figure out what exactly you want to feed to them. Do you want to feed them? Do they want GPS, every 5 seconds? Or do they want, they just tell me when it gets there, and you have to, and so we see that as a very personal and proprietary thing that IMCs have to structure for their relationships with their customers. So what we want to make sure is that we can power you to design those unique tools to reach the shipper. And we can certainly take a document or a piece of information and send it directly to the shipper if that's what you would like, to accelerate the process so that they can see it, and at the same time that everybody else has. Or you may prefer, a lot of IMCs prefer to make sure that shipper relationship stays between them and their shipper. So we can sort of, that's how we're approaching this. Power you to provide a shipper.
Yeah, if I can also add, one component of the shipper is, in addition to ETA's documents we're all talking about, one thing that's not talked about enough is there's a component of friction between shipper, IMC, and carrier relative to detention. When are you there? Did you get there? Are you really there? All those things you get questioned about as a carrier, right? It's like, and everything, as we all know, it's ultimately the driver who gets penalized probably the most in this, right? But one component that is huge in what we have, and we've had for years on the DrayNow side, but with ModalView, imagine a day where there's not this friction. It's like you were there or you weren't there, right? Once arrived by geo stamps, because everything has a geo stamp and custom geo fencing around. Imagine that day's not. I shouldn't even say imagine. It's here, right? We can do those things, but we just need to have the technology, share the data, and all have a common ground and go look at, like, are you really there? Well, that's what ModalView will do.
Yeah, and Mike, to your point, it's not even just the detention, which, yes, that's grueling. But it's, oh, the driver's there. No, the driver's not there. Oh, the driver is there. Oh, the driver's not there. Is the driver at the right building? Those types of things. And that's, to your point, is you don't have to take that, 30 minutes where everybody went back and forth. You just ping the driver and you see, oh, the driver is at the building next door.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's fantastic.
The huge beauty also is that there's no more of this guessing. Everybody's on the same page. There's no lying. There's no fibbing. Right? You can't do that anymore. This is a different time. We have the tools to do this, and it will only make everybody better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen it compared. I think you mentioned Amazon. There was an article talking about Uber, DoorDash. It's really that simple.
Yeah. If you're all looking at the same sheet and the same information, there's no fighting. The problem is we're all looking at different things, and so there's just a ton of friction. Take all that out. Let's all have the same data. Let's all get the same way. That will be huge. Just a huge component of what ModalView brings.
Kevin, it's funny, you don't think we don't compete against DoorDash, you say, but unfortunately, in our personal lives, we have these experiences that we just love, and then we go, boy, I wish that it would work like that in my business. And
Exactly.
shippers are saying that, and IMCs are saying that, and draymen are saying that, and so this does it. This brings the technology to an industry that's that needs it, and so it makes it look like everybody else that's out, what they're all doing.
Well, and I mean, that also has to make adoption a lot easier when you can just boil it down to, this is what this is.
Yep.
Speaking of adoption, and going back to, the fact that Norfolk Southern is partnering here on this, this is not envisioned as like only the folks who work with Norfolk Southern on intermodal loads can use this. This is envisioned as universal. So how important is that to get across, really?
So the ModalView today could be used on any single Class 1 railroad. Now with NS, there's additional features that we've built in, like all the QR stuff, like the NS Direct portions of what a driver does today would actually be embedded. Those QR codes and those things they do is have that NS Direct app. They don't have to do that anymore. It's actually part of the workflow of ModalView.
I'm sorry, let me just to correct. Sorry, Express NS.
I'm sorry. Yes, Express NS. Thank you, Sam. Yeah. Express NS. Those features related to the scan, the QR codes and all the in-gate, out-gate, all that goes away. Where's the container on lot? All that's embedded inside the ModalView app. But today, the ModalView app could be used on any Class 1 railroad. It just won't have those features. We are already in discussion with other Class 1 railroads about embedding their QR codes or their in-gate procedures into the ModalView app also. So this conversation is being held right now with the NS portion is already done.
It's such a one of the things we promised the draymen is like they're frustrated that we look like another app. Everybody's asking to put on an app on the phone. Every IMC has an app. Yeah. Every shipper has an app. The draymen say I already have an app. There's so many. The phones are burning up, And so one of the things that ModalView did is it actually takes an app off their phone. As Mike is saying, the Express NS app actually doesn't have to be there. It's actually enhanced. Today, when a driver approaches a Norfolk Southern ramp, they have to identify themselves through the simple app, key in who they are and what they got, what load they're on, and up comes their QR code, so they can get in the gate or get out the gate. And they don't need to key anymore. It's geofenced. As the phone, the app knows who they are. The app knows what load they're under, and when they cross the geofence area for that terminal, up pops the QR code that they need to get in the gate. And so what we see is the ability to have 100% participation from draymen because they don't have to do any work, and it makes their lives easier. And as Mike says, we've taken this technology. It came from DrayNow. As we make it into ModalView, DrayNow services, I think every Class 1 railroad out there goes in and out of their ramps with their technology. It's not something you need the permission to use from a railroad to use it. It's a street app. But we are excited about talking to the other railroads, about how can we help improve their gate processes. Would they like some of this information and visibility themselves? As see what loads are coming to them. They know that the load is supposed to be coming in the gate that day. Now we could actually provide them street information. Yes, it's actually on the way. It's going to be there maybe 10 minutes before cutoff. And so maybe they'll want to extend their cutoff just a few minutes to get that one more load on board the train when they have real information versus an IMC calling up and saying, please hold the gate open for just another 30 minutes. Now you have some real time information to let them make better decisions on how they run their business.
And I'll also add from a technology perspective, we're looking at this as an industry solution. We want to increase the efficiency of intermodal movements outside the terminal, whether that be a port, a rail, any railroad. How can we do this in a universal way? So even by way of example for our Express NS integration, we built it in a way that we can work with other Class 1 railroads, other terminal operators to integrate their own apps as well. So we're hoping that every time we build an integration, we do it in a way that can be repeatable and can be easily plug into other systems. So while we're starting with NS, they've been a really great partner for us and we're excited about it. We're also excited to just extend that to the rest of the intermodal industry as well.
Another component to add to what Meghan and Sam just talked about is we've already vetted our app in all of North America. We tested on Mexican soil and up in Canada. Works just fine. We don't have yet. We're building a Spanish version for the app, but it's already been tested. It works. So what we do is transfer it into a Spanish version. So, supply chains just don't origin and destined here in the U.S. It's no longer imagining. Can you actually see that pickup in Mexico? The answer is yeah, we can.
Well, and I think that this kind of goes back to the beginning. Something that Sam said was, Intermodal is competing against over the road to gain market share. And so any time that you can, present a more streamlined experience, somebody who tested out for the first time, or maybe somebody who tested it out 10 years ago had an experience that they didn't love so much, but now if they do it again, maybe they stick.
Absolutely.
So we've talked a little bit about roadmaps, where we already have an app that's out there, software that's out there, but what's the roadmap for the next steps?
Well, we're currently working on refining that experience specifically for 53-foot domestic intermodal moves. So working on building out the experience for onboarding carriers, so that it was right into what we were just talking about. Carriers beyond the Triple Crown motor carrier, we've started a few, and we want to continue to refine that. And then look for more. We're going to beta test it, ensure that it works. We have a really great ongoing operation with the Greer business in South Carolina for Triple Crown and their BMW business. And now we're looking to expand that and continue that same process that we did to roll that out, validate it, make sure that it works like everyone's expecting, and then increase to more design partners. So these initial early adopters in our journey, both on the IMC and carrier side, to just get that feedback to make sure that we're building a solution that's going to impact the whole industry and continue moving forward. So our focus next year is just test, repeat, and scale, and continue getting feedback.
And we will absorb all the Triple Crown volume and then commercialize it, sometime hopefully in Q2 of next year to other IMCs. And once we commercialize it externally, it's we want to just continue to repeat and bring in more IMCs into the fold.
So if somebody is watching or listening right now, and maybe an IMC, a Dray carrier, wants to get involved with this at this stage or down the road, where can they go to learn more and do that?
Yeah. Well, these are places, go to our website, ModalView, MODAL, view.com. But hey, listen, everybody knows Sam, right? Although Sam says he's retired, he's really not. Sam is working vigorously with us to get this to market. So either place works efficiently. ModalView.com, or of course, even more familiar, just go direct to Sam, and happy to talk more to everybody. We're actually on market talking to IMCs about what we're doing, and we're looking for early adapters to be part of our first phase next year.
Great. Well, thank you all for taking the time to talk to us. It's an exciting product, and
yes,
we'll definitely be watching to see how it continues to develop.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks a lot.
So this seemed to spark some passion in you. I was saying,
how could you tell?
It seemed like there were a lot of pain points that this might be addressing.
Yes.
That you're looking forward to.
Absolutely. I think us as an industry are looking forward to. I mean, I still think there's that old connotation of intermodal being kind of the, slow boat to China, no visibility, and this and that and the other, and archaic. And we've done so many advances, but this is kind of that next level of the advances, is to close those gaps in the visibility, and that document thing that we talked about is just crucial. And people don't talk about it as much, but it does cause a lot of service issues that we could avoid by having that type of technology.
Yeah, the document stuff is not the sexy topic.
It is not the
shipping,
sexy topic, no, but it certainly rears its ugly head when it happens.
So yeah, this will be interesting to continue to watch the rollout, which is already underway, and really enjoyed having the team from ModalView here to
absolutely
tell us from varying perspectives how this is working, the nuts and bolts, and sort of the broader big picture.
Absolutely, yeah, it was fun.
So thank you for watching and or listening. Hopefully, if you're watching, you're also listening.
I would hope.
Yeah. If you just want to look at us, that's fine too.
Scary thought.
But we appreciate it, and of course we encourage you to subscribe, give us a like, drop a comment if you enjoyed what we're talking about. If you have any questions about ModalView or questions about us, then the comments are the place to do it. You can also email us at podcast@inteklogistics.com if you have a lengthier question or maybe a more private question that you want to ask us. That's fine too. You can find us on our website, www.intek-logistics.com, for more about us as well. So we'll be back again with another episode soon. For Shelli, I'm Kevin. We'll talk to you then.